everyone, welcome back to A Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie, and today I am going to be working on a junk journal, or a little golden book journal, if you will. And I have picked out this Bambi Friends of the Forest book, and the reason why I picked this is because of the words Friends of the Forest, and mainly it's because I have a bunch of cards that mean something to me, and I would like to keep them, but they don't really fit in my normal scrapbook, so I need a home for them. And these are mostly cards from friends, and so it just makes sense to create a journal with the words friends in it. So that's how I chose the book. I also went looking through my stash, and I had some fabric in there that I thought would work. So I'm going to use this brown fabric, both to cover the back as well as the binding, or the spine, I should say, of the book. So that's what we're doing with that. And then for the main body, I thought, well, maybe I should pull this up. I thought this collection here from Fancy Pants, this is Life is Beautiful, worked well. The colors aren't a perfect match, but there's a lot of tones and stuff in there that work with this book. And my intent is to have the book incorporated into this little journal as well. I really like that when that happens. So you can see that, you know, there's colors in here that will pull and make it all seem somewhat cohesive. So I need to tell you a little bit about this collection. It's kind of funny, actually, because I have two. Oh, that's not the funny part. I mean, because, you know, sometimes I just buy stuff because it's on sale, and if I like it, I know I'll use it. Well, I don't remember buying these. I'm pretty sure I got one in a box, and then I bought the other one probably at Tuesday morning or something like that. What's interesting is that they're the same, but they're different. So, first of all, there's two different cover sheets. They both say Life is Beautiful. They both are Fancy Pants designs. They're both from 2016. But you'll see, even if you look at the pictures down here, that the alphabets look different. And this one includes additional cardstock. In addition, this here, so this cover sheet is just plain, probably like 20-pound paper. And this is much, much thicker. And actually, while the patterns of the cardstock are the same, they're completely different texture and weight. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So first of all, the stickers are exactly the same. I don't see any difference between those. But this is the alpha I got with the one, and this is the alpha I got with the other. So they're not even the same alpha. They're a different style. And clearly I get more alphas in the one kit than the other. This one here is your normal kind of texture, not textured scrapbook paper. It's probably a little on the thin side, so not super thick, but it doesn't have any texture at all. Whereas this one is very textured, and it's almost pebbled, I guess is probably the word. It's not linen, but it's probably more pebbled. I don't know if you can see the texture in the paper. And it's quite a bit thicker. So in addition, so I have two sheets of each of the regular kit. And then I have two sheets of most of the other kit, but I do have a couple that I got three, and I got some bonus stuff. So I'm just going to show you the one kit because, like I said, the patterns are exactly the same. So might as well just show you them once. So this first page here has the black and white stripe, and then the other side has this almost stitched X pattern. They all kind of have like a knitted look to them. This one here is a turquoise with almost like a heart design. This reminds me of a sweater. And then the other side is this grid on a diagonal yellow. Very pretty. There's this floral, and on the back of the floral is this check. I have three pieces of this paper. When Birds Do Sing, Sweet Lovers Love the Spring, and His Last. So it's kind of got a springish theme to it, which is kind of cool because Bambi kind of has a springish theme to it as well. So I have 3 of these. The other side of this one is a black polka dot. Then there is this plaid, and the other side of the plaid is this tone-on-tone floral with a little pink center. And then I have 3 pieces of this floral with the black background, and then the other side is this green leaf. There is a wood grain in here, and it's a very rustic wood grain, and the back side of that is this again, it looks like a knit pattern to me with pink and red. And then here's that stripe, a light pink, dark pink stripe. Oh, sorry. I have 2 sheets of that. Actually, I have 3. So 2 sheets that I'm showing this way, and then the back side is this writing paper. Okay, and then in this kit, there's 3 specialty pieces. There's this gold foil, and then there's 2 corrugated, a turquoise and then this coral. So that's kind of fun. So I'm going to try and incorporate at least one of each of the patterns in this book. That's the plan. I will probably also go through book pages and stuff like that I have and see what else I can incorporate. So it's going to be junk journal-esque-ish, maybe. I think that's the plan. We'll see how it goes when I start working on it. As far as other embellishments, these do not come with the kit. It came separate, but they are from the Life is Beautiful collection. This is some chipboard alpha in a wood green. And then I have these tags, the flare, the ephemera pieces, and some puffy dot stickers. So lots of stuff to embellish this journal. Now the intent behind this journal, like I said, is to house things that I get from my friends that don't really fit in my normal albums. So it'll be cards, notes, emails, stuff like that. And so it's going to be an ongoing project. So I'm going to create the base, and then I'll just add things as they come up or as I get them into the journal. And then once the journal is done, I'll start volume 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out what kind of spine I want to use. So when I did my junk journal Christmas daily December book, I actually sewed it in, but I am really inspired by using an accordion spine. So I think I might do that for this one, but I need to play around with it a little bit and get it all figured out before I share it with you. So I think that's going to be my next step, is play with the spine, get this situated, and then I'll show you where I am at. Let's talk about how I'm going to put the spine together. So the first thing I did was measured my book, and it was just shy of 8 inches. And so I want to make my pages smaller than the book cover because I like having a little bit of room around the edges. So I took my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and I cut it to 7.5 inches. So this is 7.5 and this is 11 inches. And then I just put it in my scoreboard and I gave myself an inch scored. Then I did half an inch, half an inch, quarter of an inch, half an inch, half an inch, quarter inch, half an inch, half an inch, quarter inch, all the way down until I hit 9 3/4. Okay, and this is going to give me enough space on either side, hopefully, to attach to my book. So the next thing I need to do is fold these. So I don't know if you can see this, but wherever there is 2/2 inch, I want to fold that up. So I want to make a mountain out of it. And wherever there is a 1/4 inch, that's going to be in the valley or the gully. So all I'm going to do is just take every one of those 1/2 inch ones that are right next to each other and just fold them up. So create a mountain. And I'm going to go over this with a bone folder afterwards, but for now I just want to get this started. So they're all going in exactly the same direction. I am just folding them up. Okay, now I'm going to take my bone folder and we're just going to crease those really well. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this. We're now going to take wherever those quarter and we're going to fold them in the opposite direction. And just keep going like that all the way until we are done. When you're finished scoring and folding and creasing, it should look something like this. So you'll see it's kind of got a flat and then a peak and then a flat, peak, flat. So this is the 1/4 inch, this is the 1/2 inch on either side to form this. So now the next step, what we're going to do is in between these tall peaks, so in between the 1/2 inch, I'm going to apply some adhesive. You can either use score tape or liquid adhesive. I'm going to do score tape in this case because basically what you're going to do is you're going to take the 2 1/2 inch sides and glue them together. And I think it'll go quicker with the tape than glue, but if you want to, I'm sure you could use glue. You just have to make sure you press and hold that well until the glue sets. So let me go and add some adhesive on each side, or on one side of each of the 1/2 inch folds. And I'm just going to use some 1/4 inch tape and just affix it like so. I will be back once I have this all taped and I will show you what it looks like. Okay, so this might be a little bit hard to see, but I basically have a strip of adhesive on every other 1/2 inch side. So now I'm just going to peel this tape off and glue or adhere these two together. Okay, so now that I have that all glued together, the back should look something like this, and mine's not perfectly straight, but that's okay, we'll make it work. What we're going to do now is we're just going to fold these over and score or run the bone folder to make them flat, and that's just to train the paper so that when we turn this into a book, it'll be easier to flip things, and it will also help level out the back where I didn't measure as precise as I probably should have. So we're going to go one way and then we're going to go the other way. Okay, so the reason why I did a 1/4 inch in between is because I like thick and chunky books. If you followed me for any length of time, you would know that I have no control over myself and everything always ends up fat and chunky. So I thought a 1/4 inch would give me a little bit of playroom to add multiple layers and stuff like that. Okay, so at this point, this should be fairly flat. You've got the 2 flaps here that we're going to use to adhere it to the book. And what we want to do is we need to know what the spine length is going to be. And so we want to measure from here to here, so we know how big the spine needs to be. And we can give a little bit of extra room on either side just to be safe. Now this side here I already have the 1/4 inch, I don't have one on this side. So I will probably do that. So if I measure that, that is about 2 inches, close enough. So we're going to have a 2-inch spine. Before we leave this, we need to add some more score tape to this. And I happen to have 2.5 inch score tape, so I think this will work perfect. But if it doesn't, I'll let you know if it should be trimmed. And I'm just pressing this flat so that I have a better chance of aligning this. we are going to use the bone folder to really make sure this is adhered down well, because this is what is going to hold the book or all the pages into the book. And then I'm just going to trim this to size. Now comes the fun part, building the covers. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is take this golden book apart. I found the easiest the last time I did this was to take a blade and to cut down the seam. Now there are staples in here that are holding the book together, and the book, so far in my experience, they've always been two signatures, so two mini booklets, if you will, that are how the book is formed. So I found cutting the spine open helped, and then the other thing I found was finding where those staples were and just kind of releasing the foil around it so that we could access it. Now, I don't happen to have a staple remover, but if you do, it would probably be helpful. I am just going to use what I have on hand to try and pry these apart. Please be very careful when you're doing this. You don't want to hurt yourself, and these staples will be sharp. Now, I am trying to preserve this part of the spine. You could cut this off here, but the reason why I like to preserve this part of the spine is because then I don't lose as much of the front of the cover. But it's up to you. If you're not going to keep this spine of this book, right, if you just want to trim this off, obviously you don't need to be as careful taking these staples out. So I'm going to spare you watching me painstakingly remove these. It's just basically slowly but surely prying and trying to be very careful that I don't jab myself. So I will be back once this is taken apart. Basically, I pried the prongs up on the back. Once I had those out, I went back to the front, slipped my little pick here underneath, and just kind of wiggled until it went through. Now this is a little rough, and that's okay because we're going to cover this, but we just want to make sure that we don't put a hole through the whole spine here. Now that we've slit, we remove the staples, we're going to very carefully take the book apart. So, this is what I mean by two signatures. So not all of these pages are likely going to end up in this book, I've decided, but I do want a few of them. For instance, the ones that talk about friendship, those ones I think will be the ones I will choose, and then the rest will just go in my pile that I can incorporate into another junk journal at another time. So the other thing I want to do to prep this is I want to remove any extra foiling on here that, you know, may cause problems. So I'm just going to peel this off as best I can without tearing the spine. I'll be back once this has been cleaned up. Okay, so once you have your two books apart and cleaned up, the next thing you're going to need is the spine, and we're going to need a 2-inch spine of roughly the same thickness as the golden book. You can use chipboard, multiple layers of chipboard if you need to get it to the right thickness. I had purchased a number of golden books in a batch off of eBay, and included in there were some books that I knew I wasn't going to convert into a junk journal, and so I'm using the covers from that as the spines for this one. Maybe at some point I will use the pages, not sure yet, but at least we're using everything that I have in my stash. So I trimmed this down to 2 inches, so we now have something that will look like this, and then our spine is going to go on top. And so now we just need something that's going to connect the covers to the spine, and we're going to use some Tyvek. And you're probably going, Tyvek? Isn't that used for protecting the exterior of houses? Yes, it is, and it's also used in postage envelopes. So the USPS envelopes, the soft covered ones, not the cardboard ones, are made of Tyvek, and I had some in my stash that I was using for organization, which I'm going to recycle or repurpose for this album. What's cool about it is that it doesn't really tear, right? So I think it's infused with like some sort of fibers and stuff that it won't tear. Like you can't tear it. You can cut it, but it won't tear. And so what we're going to do is we are going to trim a piece that is long enough to fit this, which was just shy of 8 inches. We need at least 2 inches, 2 inches to cover the spine, and I want at least 1 inch on either side, and then we need a little tiny bit of a gap. And so what we're going to use is the leftover piece from the chipboard, and we're going to use that as a gap for positioning. We want enough of a space in there so that when this book folds, it's got room to fold, right? If you butt it right up, it's not gonna fold very well, and you're gonna end up with issues. Just shy of 8, so we got 2, at least another 2, so 4. So I'm thinking probably 8 by 5 will work, and then I'll just trim the tops off to match rather than try to guess and hope that I get it right. So 8 by 5, we're gonna trim from here. Okay, so here is my binding, if you will. The first thing that I am going to do is I am going to fold this in half so that I can position this. I am going to mark this at 1 inch. It doesn't have to be precise, I'm just that way. To bond this, I'm going to use something called Fabri-Tac. I believe it's like a silicone glue. It's super tacky and will bind really well with this. You could also use something like Eileen's Tacky Glue, or you'd probably even Scotch Quick Dry. But you do want something that is really going to adhere well to this. The other thing, I probably wouldn't use a glue gun. Because a glue gun can leave ridges, so we want this to be smooth. Flip it over. We're going to use the bone folder to make sure we have good contact. We're going to use the spacer to make sure this is spaced far enough apart. And we do want to make sure that it is level. When we're lining the back, we want to make sure that that fold from the spine of the original book is in next to the spine of this new book that we're creating. And for the front, you definitely want to make sure that that's the case, because you don't want your book to be upside down. And I'm just using a ruler at the bottom to make sure that these are aligned. So here's something to think about or consider when you're doing this. I actually covered up some of the Friends of the Forest, which was kind of the whole point of me doing it, as well as flour. I'm okay with that in this case. It's all right. I will make it work, but just something to keep in mind that instead of having this big of a gap, you may want to make it a little bit smaller. The other thing you'll notice is because I kept this spine in here, it's a little floppy, and so we're going to have to do something to fix that, because we don't want a floppy book, right? So I am going to trim this and then let this really set up before moving on to the next step. Okay, when I left you off last time, I had indicated that we needed to do something to make this a little less floppy in the original spine. And I had found someone on Facebook, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but they had actually put a piece of string in there just to help thicken that seam up. And I think that just might work. We might do a couple rows of thread in there just to make it a little more secure, and then by the time we add our spine on, that's going to add even a little bit more stability. Now for this, I'm just going to use Scotch Quick Dry, and I'm just going to run a bead down that seam. We're Just gonna lay that in like that. Give it a good press. And we'll do the other side. Okay, and we'll just give that time to dry as well. Okay, so I have pressed my fabric. I have the selvage going up at the top and the two sides that are loose because I actually like having a little bit of a fringe on my book. So I am going to cover the entire back plus come across up to here and cover that. So it should look something like that when we're all said and done. That's the plan anyways. So you can adhere this down with a number of different things. I think I still have enough fabric tack, so that's what I'm going to use. You can also use Eileen's tacky glue. Just be careful how much you use because you don't want it to seep through the fabric. I've used double-sided sticky tape in the past as well, and I've also used some heat and bond, which is basically almost like an interfacing that you glue or you iron onto one side and then you iron the fabric on the other. So they all work. It's just whatever you have that you can make work. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am actually going to adhere this front piece because that's the part that I want to make sure lines up as good as possible. You will notice that I have the string in there that's all dried. It's still a little bit wobbly, but not too bad. And by the time we add the spine and the other backing sheet to make it all nice and pretty, it should be fairly sturdy. At least that's my plan. So let's add some glue. I do use a bone folder to just make sure the glue gets spread out and leaves as few lumps and bumps as possible. This fabric is a little bit on the thin side, and so I can see some of the yellow shining through the lighter parts. So that's something to keep in mind when you pick fabric, that you don't want it to be too thin or you will see the back side. You can also use cardstock instead of fabric. I just thought fabric is kind of fun, and I think it's a little bit sturdier from a book perspective, less wear and tear on the folds and stuff. Okay, so now that that is done, we are going to cover the interior here. So there's probably some fancy way out there to miter corners. I am just going to trim it at an angle, and then we'll test and see how it looks. With fabric, I think it's a little more forgiving than with paper. Okay, so I've trimmed at an angle. You do want to make sure you're not cutting exactly level with the corner of the book because you do want a little bit of fabric to peek over and cover that corner. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are just going to tack that down in the two corners. And then we are going to start across here, and I'm going to do a bead of glue right along the edge, and then we'll come back and we'll add glue along the edge of the fabric. It out. The back of the book looks like that. There's the spine, and we will just peel back some of this, the loose edges here, just to give it a little bit of a fringe. Okay, so now let's deal with the inside. Now we're not going to worry too much about the score lines. We really just want this to be centered on the spine piece. We can always rescore this if need be, which is probably what's going to have to happen. And I do want to add a little bit more adhesive along the edge. Okay, and then we're just going to peel back part of this, but not all of it, just so that we have a little bit tucked out so we can peel it off when we need to easily. That just gives us a little less area that's going to stick, and because this tape is so sticky, you usually pretty much only get one shot at laying it down. So you do want to be extremely careful when you do lay it. Okay, so the two edges we've peeled back. Those are going to be the last things that are going to go down, but we are going to peel back the full spine. You can use this to kind of hold things in place so it doesn't adhere completely if you want to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. I'm just going to use the bone folder in between each of the pieces just to make sure we've got some good adhesion. And this is going to take a little bit of training. Okay, so for the front covers, I'm opting to use this paper here because I have 3 sheets of this. And I am going to trim this to 6.5 by 7 7/8. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get 2 out of 1 sheet, so I'm going to have to cut into both. But that is just the way it goes sometimes. When you are cutting your cardstock, make sure you understand the orientation. So in this case, I need this to be 6.5 inches wide. So we are going to trim it this way first. We're going to do the same with this one at 6.5. And then 7 7/8. Now, because I'm just about out of glue of the fabric tack, I'm going to use the Eileen's tacky glue. Now, this glue is a little bit watery, if you will, so it can warp the paper. So just be careful with how much you put down and where you put it. I'm just going to kind of stick to the sides, and I might just put some double-sided tape down the middle. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 7 inserts that I can add in here, and the size of the inserts are going to be 7.5 inches tall, and they should be no more than 6 1/4. So we just need to remember those numbers: 6 1/4 by 7.5 max, and to maximize paper I will probably make it 6 by 7.5. Let me go trim up some cardstock and grab some other stuff from my stash, and I will come back and show you how we're going to insert the pages. So here's how I'm going to put this book together. I'm going to take a 12 by 7.5 piece of paper and score it at 6 inches. Well, actually 6 1/4 inch one way and 5 3/4 inches the other way, so that you end up with 2 folded pieces of paper that we're going to form together to make a pocket. I hope that makes sense, but I will try and explain it. So for instance, here is a 12 inch by 7.5. I scored this at 6 1/4. And the reason why I did that is because I didn't want it to tuck all the way into the middle so that it's easier to pull open. And then what I'm going to do is take another piece of cardstock, same measurement, so this is 12 inches by 7.5, and it's scored at 5 3/4. And basically what we're going to do is then take the 2 larger sides and we're going to adhere them back to back. Okay, so we're going to adhere them back to back to form a pocket in the top. So this will have tape and this will have tape, And the tape on both of these sides is going to sandwich a piece of the accordion. So if you think of it this way, you're going to have one on this side. This is going to fold over. And then you're going to have this on this side, so you will not see that white piece, right? And then you'll have a pocket that we can pull tags or another page or layout out. Hopefully that makes sense. So you need 2 pieces of paper for each accordion, and I need 7 accordions, so I need 14 pieces of paper. Okay, so I've got different combos here. I'm just going to finish scoring these, and then I will show you what the next steps are going to be. I'm also going to intermix a few of the pages from the storybook. The pages that I selected have the word friend in them, or I just thought it was a really cute page. So what I did was I trimmed this down to 7.5 inches, and depending on how I want it to present itself, I am scoring 1/2 inch along the gusset. So sometimes I may need it to go one way and other times I may need it to go the other. It's not that big of a deal to flip it, but basically I'm just scoring it at 1/2 inch, and the idea is that then I can turn around and add this as another layer to this book. So for instance, this will be the inside seam. We will glue this down, have this come across, and then this will open, and then this will be a pocket. Okay, so I think I have the book laid out the way I want. So these 2 pages will be together, and then I will have the Bambi page, so this will open like that, and then like this. It's kind of hard when the pieces are all loose. Then we'll have these 2, so you picture it this way. This will open, this will flip, this will open, and then like that. Okay, I only have 2 more inserts left, so I thought I'd show you how I am putting this together. Basically, you want to take your pieces of cardstock that you've decided you're going to use to make the pocket, and if you're going to add any extra pages, you want that as well. The first thing you're going to want to do is adhere the extra pages to your base cardstock first. So in this case, I want this to wrap this way. So I am just going to really score this well so I have a nice crease. I'm going to take my quick dry and I'm just going to run a bead of glue down the side. Tuck that into the fold, make sure it is centered, and then fold and give that a good press. What's really important before you do the next step is make sure your orientation is correct. I like to think of this as a left and a right. So on the left, you want to have the fold to the middle, and on the right, you want to have a fold to the middle, and these are going to get sandwiched together like this. Okay, so just think of it this way. You should see the inside cardstock on both of these, and we're basically just going to flip these upside down, and now we're going to add some score tape. I have some really thin score tape. You could use a 1/4 inch too, that's fine. Just use what you have. You could use liquid glue too. I'm just doing this because it's quick and easy. Okay, so remember the fold is on this side, right? So on this sheet we want to do a U, and I like to start with the open end first and lay the adhesive down for that. And then the same on the other side. And then across the bottom. Okay, so on the left hand side, remember this is the fold, this is the open side. We're going to run 1 strip of adhesive just along the open end. That's it. Now we are going to just peel back slightly all of the pieces, and on the long sides you want to do it at the top. So on the U shape, the top of the U. On the bottom, you want it to be on the fold side. So remember, this is the open side, this is the fold. We want to peel up this corner here. And on this one, we want to just peel it up at the top. Okay, now we're going to sandwich these. So this folded side is going to meet this folded corner here, and that's what we're going to use to align. So we're going to make sure that looks nice and even, and we're going to then follow up the fold all the way to the top. That little bit of tape that we peeled and exposed is enough to tack that in place. We can now pull on the extra piece, give that a good press, and same for this, and give that a good press. So at this point, we have our open end here. This is where the accordion fold binding is going to go in, and this is going to be the top of the pocket. You want to make sure, because I find it easier if I adhere this side, right? So this is how it's going to go in, right? So this is the bottom of the pocket, this is the top. I find it easier to make sure this is pulled back a little bit further, right? So that when we flip it this way, it extends a little bit further out. The other side's not so critical because we can get that afterwards. Okay, so now in between these two, we need to insert this strip here. I like to start at the back, which is the bottom of the pocket. I also like to tuck all of this over so I can see what I'm doing, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So basically this fold I'm inserting in between those two pieces to make a pocket. And we want to make sure this little piece of glue is, or little piece of backing is sticking out so we can remove it afterwards. And I like to just kind of tuck this down until it reaches the bottom. Okay, so just push that until it's the bottom. Make sure it's lined up. Okay, and then where that adhesive is exposed, that'll tack down, and then we can pull it the rest of the way and then just give it a good press. Okay, I'm going to fold this over now, and we're going to flip over on this side. Lay this as flat as you can. Peel this back, and now you can just adhere it as it naturally wants to fall. So we've got, right, I want this page this way, so it'll look like this: open, open, this, and open. Okay, so one last page and I will be back and we'll make the inserts. I have all my pages inserted now. I'll just show you a really quick flip through so you get the idea of how this looks. Okay, so I measured the inside, and about 5 inches would be perfect, even though it's 6 inches, 6¼ inches actually. Because of the spine and everything else, 5 inches I think will work the easiest or the best for sliding in and out. And it just so happens that the leftover bits, including the branding strip, are just shy of 5 inches. It's like 4 7/8. So I am going to use these to make the inserts, and the branding strip on one side looks really cool, the other side not so much. So what we're going to do is, from the other leftover bits, we'll make a decorative border or trim to cover that up. And this was 7½ inches, and I'm thinking that it's probably going to be about 7¼ or something like that, I think. Yep, 7¼ So I'm going to trim these all down to 7¼ I need 7 tags. Obviously you could make the tags even more complicated or more convoluted. You could, you know, fold them and have like accordion fold tags, all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to keep it simple. So I'm going to trim these at 7¼ And while I'm at it, I'm going to then cut some decorative strips from the other scraps and fill up the whatever the branding strip that's left. And then I'll show you how I'm going to finish off the tags. To complete the inserts, like I said, I added a strip of cardstock. I took some ephemera just to make a little pull. And basically this is then going to slide inside the pocket like so. And then the little bit will stick out so that we can pull it out if need be. So the different tags, I added the bicycle on top of this one, the typewriter, the butterfly, the floral, sun, another floral to end it up. Okay, so the basics are done. Now I just need to fix the front cover with the title and insert the cards that I already have that can go in here and embellish a little bit more just to make it fun. So let me get to that and I will be back to show you the end results. Okay, so I worked on the front cover, and as I had mentioned before, the way I had the fabric coming across, it covered some of the wording. And so what I did was I just took some of this distress paint in broken china and just kind of covered it up. Now you can still see through this paint. This paint is kind of on the thin side, but I'm okay with that because I'm going to take some of these die cuts, and I think I am just going to layer these, something to that effect. And so really the only thing I'm seeing right now is of the forest, and I'm going to add some stickers or something over top to put my own title for the book, and it'll probably just be Friends. At least that's my thought. So let me get to gluing this down, adding the title, and I'll show you how that looks. So the stuff that I had to put away or find a home for has found a home in this book. It is by no stretch of the imagination done as I go about cleaning up other areas in my craft room. If I find more memorabilia or things that relate to friendship, I'm going to add to this book until it's finished. So this is how the front cover turned out. I'm really pleased with it. I think it looks really cute. I just called it a friendship journal. As I mentioned before, I painted the background to mask the original title of the book, but I did leave a little golden book and Walt Disney's the logo up here at the top. It's muted, but it still has a nod to it so that you know where that's come from. So I've just added whatever cards that I had. I added to some of these pages, not every page, like for instance this one's still empty. For the inserts, I've also added some cards to there, but I haven't added anything on the back. And basically I am not being terribly particular, but I am trying to coordinate it somewhat so that it looks, you know, intentional, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And if I find that I end up with a pattern or something that doesn't work with the card, I can always, you know, add another layer or something like that. On this page here, sorry for the glare, I added a cutout from a garden book, and that's just to cover the back side of the Bambi. It had the original title, and because I already had this in the front, I didn't need to have it twice. I thought this was just pretty and complemented the paper on this side, and I thought I could either add a small photo on here or maybe add a friendship quote or something along that lines whenever that inspires me. And then I love this page. I probably won't do much except for maybe add a quote. Here's another card, and I didn't add anything on these pages yet. On this side, nothing there. I don't have anything on the tags. Same with this, nothing on either of these. This one, I added this card on this side. Nothing on the tag. So I've got lots of space if you think about it. This side's empty. Here's another card, empty. Tag is also empty. This one here references friendship, so I definitely will keep this. Whether I choose to keep this side or not, I'm leaving my options open at this point. Nothing on here, but on the tag I added this postcard. This is another one that references friendship, so again, I probably won't touch this. This one, maybe. We'll see how this plays out. And then on this tag, I have an actual photo of a friend of mine and her family. This is from 2013. And on this side is another postcard. So as you can see, it's going to be a hodgepodge. I'm not worried about years or anything like that. I could, in theory, put some of those Christmas cards in here. You know, the ones that friends and family send you with their photos. Whatever moves me is how this book will be used. I hope this inspires you to maybe look at a different way of keeping your memorabilia. In this case, I'm referring to cards and family photos that I don't necessarily want to put in my scrapbook. Let me know if you think this is something that could work for you, or if this sparks any other ideas. I'd love to hear, you know, what this maybe has inspired you to pursue. Thanks again for joining me, and until next time, happy crafting.